Okay, welcome to this video. It's on one of the 15-mark questions from the Cambridge iGCSE, and this particular question is from paper 2-1 in the summer of 2024. So it's a very recent one. So let's have a look at the question. Okay, so here's the question, and the first thing I think is important is that we make sure we read the question through first. It's just to get a head around what we're expected to do and to pick up some important points that will be useful a little bit later. So first of all, I've identified this chunk of information at the top. This is all above. You'll see this statement: write a program that meets the following requirements. We're looking at the information above that. This will be on the question that will be coming up this year. Okay, so this part is going to give us details that we need to code the solution. Things that we need to know: any names that we're given. So we've got some arrays in here: clubs, statistics, and points. It's really important we use the exact spelling of these in our answer, and we're going to be using these in our solution as well. And you will lose marks if you change these identifiers or names. Notice they start with capital letters, so we need to stick with that. Right, this next part is quite important as well. So if we read this through, it's telling us that the index or the position in each array will be the same for each club. So we've got our three arrays here, and what I'm going to do is I'll just show you what that means, give you an example. So if you look here, I've got clubs, I've put some clubs in there, I've got some points, and I've got some statistics. So I've got the three arrays, we've got some data. So the data in position 1 is all about us cricket club. So if we look here in the points array, the points at position 1 are the points for us cricket club, and the statistics here, so we've got three statistics here. These are position 1 of the statistics array, and they are the statistics for us cricket club. And then similarly, position 2, we've got the Ton cricket club. The points in position 2 are for the Ton cricket club, and then these statistics in the statistics array in position 2 are the statistics for Ton cricket club. Okay, well, we also have this variable matches here. We're going to use this variable in our solution when we're asked to input the number of matches. And again, we need to make sure we write it out as it is here, capital M, and spell it correctly. Otherwise, it'll cost us marks. And then finally in this section, not important information that we make sure we don't overlook this. So points are awarded. So when we're calculating the number of points, if there's a win, it's 12 points. If there's a draw, it's 5 points. No points for a loss. So we're going to use that data in any calculations. Okay, so moving on. Now, this is the important information here. So I put a box around this. We've got 9 bullet points underneath. Write a program that meets the following requirements. The bullet points after that in the question are the most important part. They tell us what our code has to do. Our code has to meet each of these bullet points, and that's what this video will work through, each bullet point in turn, and give you some ideas of how to approach the question. The mark scheme is based off these points. So if you're missing any of this functionality, then it's going to cost you marks. And we're going to work through them all in this video. Okay, and then lastly, don't miss this bit of information at the bottom. So there's important information here, and I've noticed that it can change from exam to exam. So it's important to read it and just to check what it says. So you must use pseudocode or program code. So I'm going to be using pseudocode in this video. You might want to write your answer in Python. That's entirely up to you. As I said there, you can write it in Python. Right, so the remarks for adding comments. So that's a really easy win for picking up marks, and I'm going to show you some examples of comments in the solution as well. And it's pretty straightforward because in the comments you're pretty much just writing out what you've already done, just in natural language. Right, this is an important one. You don't need to declare any arrays or variables. You can, but it's not going to get you marks. And if you look at the examiner's answer at the end of this, I've put it at the end of this, you'll see that they have declared the arrays and the variables, but you don't need to do that, so we won't worry about that. So that's that bit there. What else have we got? All inputs and outputs must contain suitable messages. So as an example here, if you wanted somebody to input their name, you would need to make sure that you output a message enter your name. And similarly, if you ask them to input something and they input it incorrectly, and we're validating it, we need to put an error message on the screen as well. Okay, so let's get straight into the code, and we're starting off with bullet point 1. So we need to allow the number of matches played to be input and stored, with a maximum of 22 matches. So let's have a look at that. So in the previous slide, we actually looked at this and we saw, look, there's a variable called matches that we need to use to store the number of matches. So we're going to use that here. So I'm going to output a message, enter the number of matches to be input, and it does say here with a maximum of 22 matches. So I'm actually going to put that, that's a suitable message. I'm telling them it has to be up to 22. And then I'm going to input that so that we'll use the variable matches to help us store that piece of data. Okay, now remember, we have to add comments. We don't have to add comments, but if you want to get the marks for them, then let's add them. So ask the user to input the number of matches. There we go. If you wanted to add and store or use the matches variable to store that, why not? Okay, so we've done that. Now, I could have validated that here as well, but it asks me to do that in the next bullet point. So this is what I mean by an approach. One way to do this is to take each bullet point in turn, address it, move on to the next one. And that way, even if your program isn't going to work, you're likely to pick up some of the marks for doing things like the output and the input and some of the other things, and also maybe some marks for the comments that you're writing, even if your code isn't going to work. So let's move on to point 2. So we need to validate the number of matches played. So we need to make sure that this variable here is a value between 1 and 22 inclusive. So I'm going to use a while loop here to do that, and I'm going to use the while loop to check and see whether it's less than 1, or so if matches is less than 1, or if matches is greater than 22, then it's incorrect. I want them to re-enter it. So I'm basically going to output a message. Please enter a number of matches between 1 and 22. So here I'm being very specific. So this is my error message, if you like. And I'm asking to input again. Now, with the while loop structure, we need to have an end while with that as well. So I'm going to include that here. Now, I'm going to add a comment. So I'm going to try and comment at least each of these bullet points if I can. So while loop continues until a value between 1 and 22 is input. So I could add a little bit more to that. I could say this is allowing me to validate the number of matches, but I'm quite happy with that. Let's move on to point 3. So allow the names of the cricket clubs to be input and stored. So we're going to use a for loop for this because we know there are 12 cricket clubs. It tells us at the top here, we read that earlier. So we just need a for loop that's going to go from 1 to 12. That will allow us to input the 12 clubs. Remember, you use a for loop if you know how many times something's going to happen. We use the while loop down here to validate the number of matches because we don't know how many times they're going to get it wrong or if they're going to get it wrong at all. So anyway, let's use the for loop for that. Now, the names of the clubs are going to be stored in the clubs array. Again, it tells us in the question. So we're going to use the loop variable to place the name entered into the correct position in the clubs array. So let's have a look at that, how that's going to work. So name is going to be my loop variable. The name is going to be assigned 1 to 12. So the name is going to start off at 1. So let's output enter a club name, input club name. Now what we're going to do is to write that club name in the correct position. So this is going to be the first one. So clubs is the name of the array, and name is my loop variable or loop counter, and it's currently 1. So clubs position 1 will assign the club name that was just entered. So let's complete our for loop, next name. So the next time around, name, my loop variable, is going to be 2. So we input another club name, then club's position 2 is going to be assigned that club name. And then we can keep going around until we've actually entered 12 clubs and we have them all in the correct order in the clubs array. So let's pop some comments in here. So this for loop iterates or loops 12 times. Use the loop variable name, which is what I've called it, to insert the club name in the correct position of the clubs array or something along those lines. Okay, that's that one done. And you can see again, by taking this approach, breaking each bullet point down, tackling them one at a time, we're giving ourselves the best chance of picking as many marks as possible and making sure that we use those comments each time. Okay, let's move on. Point 4. We need to enter the statistics for won, drawn and lost. These will go into the statistics 2D array. So allow the number of matches won, drawn and lost to be input and stored for each team. Okay, so this is what the statistics array will look like. So let's just come back to this. It's a two-dimensional array, coming back to the details over here. It's going to store for each cricket club the number of matches won, drawn and lost. So what we've got is, we've got club 1, so this is position 1. Remember, it's a two-dimensional array, so we've essentially got, inside our main array, we've got these smaller arrays. This is the first one, and it will be for club 1. That'll be for club 2, that'll be for club 3, and so on. Now, inside this mini array, we've got the first position, the first element is number of wins, then number of draws, and the number of losses. And that continues. So that's how the array is going to look. So for example, statistics 1, which is the first number is for example the club 1. Position 1 is going to be 4. Then for example statistics 2, which is going to be, remember the first number is the club, so it's club 2. Position 1 is this number here, is going to be 2 as an example, and then another example, statistics 3, position 2 is going to be this one. So that's how the array is going to work. So what we need to do is, we've got 12 clubs, so we're going to loop 12 times, and for each club we're going to input the 3 pieces of data and store them into the correct array. So let's have a look at how we can do that. Now this first line here, I'm just going to tell the person which club they're entering the data for. So I've got a new loop counter here, I'm calling it stat, assign 1 to 12. So stat's going to start off at 1. So I'm basically outputting enter statistics 4. So clubs is the clubs array. 1 is going to be the first club, so it's going to output the name of the first club, just so they know which club they're using. It doesn't matter if you didn't do that, we're still meeting the bullet point. So we just need to enter the number of matches won, drawn and lost. So let's create 3 variables. Enter the number of matches won, input 1, enter the number of matches drawn, input drawn, enter the number of matches lost, input lost. So we've got our data. What we need to do now is we need to write the data into the statistics array. So you can see what we're going to do is we're going to use the loop counter or loop variable, which is going to start off at 1. So statistics 1, position 1, assign 1. So that will pop that for the first club here. And we're going to say statistics stat. So remember, stat is still 1, position 2 is going to be drawn, and then stat position 3 is going to be lost. So 1, 1 is going to be 1, 1, 2 is drawn, 1, 3 is lost. Next, stat. So stat will go around again, stat will be 2. So we're going to say enter the statistics 4, and this will be the name of the second club. So we input 1, drawn and lost. And now, because stat is 2 this time, so enter the statistics, so it's going to be club 2, position 1 is going to be 1, club 2, position 2 is going to be drawn, club 2, position 3 is going to be lost. Stat will become 3, we go around again, and you can see each time it's going to put the 3 pieces of data for each club. Okay, so let's add some comments. Use the variables 1, drawn and lost to store data. Use the loop variable stat to put the data into the correct position in the array statistics. Okay, that's that one done. Let's move on to point number 5. So point number 5, validate the number of matches won, drawn and lost against the number of matches played. So we entered the number of matches played earlier. That's stored using the variable matches. Now we've just entered for each team we're entering for each team the number won, drawn and lost. So those 3 added together need to equal the number of matches. So first of all, what I'm saying is we're validating. I'm just checking it first, because the next bullet point asks them to re-enter it if it's wrong. I'm just going to tell them if it's wrong. So if 1 plus drawn plus lost is not equal, so in the pseudocode we're using the back-to-back pointy brackets or back-to-back chevrons to indicate not equal to. In Python you would use exclamation mark equal. So if 1 plus drawn plus lost is not equal to matches, then output total should be matches, so that's the number of matches, enter again. So I'm just putting out a message. You could just put incorrect total, please re-enter if you wanted to. So that's addressed that bullet point. We have just told them that it's wrong. The next bullet point, let's add some comments. Check a valid total for when drawn and lost has been entered. So it should be the same as the number of matches. Right, so the next bullet point 6, we're asking them to re-enter the number of matches if that total is different to the total number of matches. So Let's have a look at that. So if the total for won plus drawn plus lost is not equal to the total number of matches, they have to re-enter the data. So for example, if we entered there are 8 matches, and for a club we put 4 won, 3 drawn and none lost, that gives us 7. So there's some data missing there because they should be the same. So the numbers are not the same, so there must be an error. The data must be re-entered. Okay, so what I'm going to do for this, I'm going to use a repeat until. So it's a fairly straightforward way of catching an error. So we're going to repeat all of this until won plus drawn plus lost is the same as the number of matches. So if we go through all of this and won plus drawn plus lost is equal to the number of matches, then we're done. We can come out of this loop and we can do the next one. If it's not, then we'll keep going around until they've entered the correct data. So it's a fairly straightforward way of catching that error. So let's add a comment to that. So the repeat loop will continue until the correct number of matches has been entered. So there we go. So remember, keep adding those comments. Leave a little bit of space when you're writing out your answer. Know that you're going to be popping a comment back in at some point. So just leave a little bit of space. Okay, so let's move on. Point 7, calculate and store the points for each club. So we need to give 12 points for a win, 5 points for each draw. So here's our example array again. So to work out the points total for each team, we're going to need a loop that's going to repeat 12 times again. Every time it repeats, we're going to calculate this. So wins times 12 plus draws times 5. And we've got the data inside the statistics array. We just need to pick it out. So just to go back over that again. So in the statistics array, position 1 is the data for the first club, position 2, the data for the second club, position 3, the data for the third club, and so on. To access the individual pieces inside there, we have a second number. So statistics 1.1 is 4, statistics 1.2 is 6. Those are the 2 bits of data we need to work out the points for the first club. And then statistics 2.1 is this piece of data here. That's the number of wins. Statistics for the second club. Statistics 2.2 is this piece of data, the number of draws for the second club, and so on. So for team 1, we will calculate this. Points is wins times 12 plus draws times 5. So we want statistics 1.1 times 12. So statistics 1.1 is this here, number of wins, 4, plus statistics 1.2 times 5. So we want statistics 1.2 is this element, which is 6, and that's the number of draws. So that will give us 4 times 12 plus 6 times 5, which is 78. So we just need a loop that's going to go in 12 times. Each time we just pick that data out. So let's have a look at how we can do that. So for data assigned 1 to 12, so again, I've got data is my loop counter. What I want to do each time is work out a total. So total is going to be statistics data 1. So remember, data is going to be a value from 1 to 12. Each time the loop iterates, so it goes around, data will increase by 1. It'll start off at 1. So we've got statistics 1.1 times 12 plus statistics 1.2 times 5. So statistics 1.1 in my example is the wins for club 1. That'll be the first one times 12. And then statistics 1.2, because remember data is 1, that's the number of draws for club 1. So that will give us the value we worked out earlier, 78. What we need to do is to write that total into the correct array. So coming back to the question, the 1D array points is used to store the total number of points for each cricket club. So we're going to pop that into the correct position. So remember, data is holding the position. So we're currently on position 1 at the start. So points, position 1, we're going to be assigning that total. And then we'll go to the next one. So data will become 2. So this time will be statistics 2.1 times 12 plus statistics 2.2 times 5. And then it'll become 3, and so on and so forth. Let's stick a couple of comments in here. So loop through each club's statistics, calculate the total points, and store the result in the points array. Nice, straightforward comment. Again, we're picking up marks for doing this. So we're almost done. Right, point 8, find the cricket club or clubs with the highest number of points. So we've already got the totals, or in the points array, we have the totals for each club. We just need to use a max algorithm to find the largest score. So what we're going to start off with, because we're going to compare a value with each position in the points array, what we want to happen is we want the very first position in the points array to become the largest value. So we're going to start off with this variable max here. You can call it what you want, largest for example. I'm calling it max. I'm going to set that to something really, really small, or something that's definitely going to be smaller than one of the values. So I don't think any clubs will have a points total of minus 1,000, even if they have been deducted some points for doing something wrong. So I need to create a loop that's going to go over the points array with this. So there are 12 separate points for each, one for each club in the points array, and I'm going to call that highest. So this is my loop variable. It's going to be highest. So highest assigned 1 to 12. So it'll start off at 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare the points at that position. So points at position 1 with max. So if the points at position 1 in the points array, because remember highest is my loop variable, it's going to start off at 1. So if points position 1 is bigger than max, I know it's going to be bigger than max because I've made it deliberately really, really small. So the first one will become the highest value. So we're going to say max is going to be assigned points highest. So points position 1 is going to become the highest value to start with. So I'm using an if statement here, so I'm going to correctly finish that with an end if using the pseudocode that Cambridge likes us to use. And then I'm going to complete my for loop with my next, and next highest. So what will happen is highest will become 2, we'll go around again. So if the points at position 2 are bigger than max, which is the one that we just set it to, then we will create a new version of max, which will be points position 2, and so on and so forth. So we'll keep going around and we will find out which of these scores is the biggest, and that will be stored in the variable max. So let's just pop some comments in, set max to a small value. So the first point score becomes the largest, and then we're going to compare this against the others. And we'll end up with max holding the largest value. Okay. Right, so point 9, we're on our final bullet point here. So let's finish it off now. So finally, we can take the maximum score we just worked out and compare it with all the other scores. If we find a match, we just need to print the details out. So we need to output the name or names of the winning club or clubs, the number of wins, the total number of points awarded. Now, what we need to do here is we just need to check, because if 2 or more clubs had the same number of points, then the way that this is set up is that they're the winner. So if they have the same number of points, then if 3 teams with the same number of points, they're all the winners. So if 2 or more teams are tied, we'll automatically find them all and print their details too. So I'm outputting these are the winner or winners. I'm creating another loop that's going to go around 12 times again, and this time my loop variable is going to be winner. So winner will be a number from 1 to 12. So if points winner, so for example to start off with, it would be points position 1, is equal to the maximum value, so we're going to compare it. If we get a true, then we're going to say output, well done. So clubs winner, so if it's obviously winner's going to start off at 1. So we're going to output well done club position 1. You had, so we're going to pick out the details from the statistics. So in the statistics, it will be 1 position 1. That's the number of wins in the statistics array. And then we need to output the number of points. So the points array, again, remember winner is holding, it's the loop variable, so it's going to start off at 1. So points position 1, points. If for example, if club 1 had the maximum or the largest score, then we'd output their details. End that if statement, next winner. So we can go around each of the 12 clubs. Any of the clubs that happen to have the same number of points as the highest or max will output their details. So let's just finish this off with some comments. So loop over the points array, compare each score with max. Use the loop variable to print the details for any team that matches the max score. And that's it finished. So let's have a look at the last couple of points. So this is the completion of the code. We'll just have a quick review of the mark scheme, etc. if you want to have a look at that. Well done if you've made it this far in the video. You've done really, really well. It's 25 minutes. I was hoping it would be a little bit shorter, but I've tried to go into it as much detail as possible, but trying to approach it in the way that you would if you were sitting the exam. So this is the completed pseudocode. It addresses each of the bullet points. It has the full functionality. I haven't included the comments here, so we have included comments. I've just taken them out because it fits nicely on the page about the comments in, but you will have comments in yours as well, and this should get full marks. On the next slide, I'll show you we'll just very quickly talk about the exemplar that the exam board has put in. So let's have a quick look at that. So if you are shown the exemplar or the example, there's a couple of points I would just want to make on it. So they've obviously declared the variables and arrays. You don't have to do that. One thing they've also done is their code is shorter than the example I've created here, and that's mainly down to the fact that what they've done is they've combined some of the processing. So because most of the loops just happen to run 12 times, so sometimes you can actually do 2 or 3 parts of the processing inside one of the loops. I think it's good practice in an exam for you guys to separate them, because it means that you're just focusing on one thing and you can get that to work. Great, then you can move on to the next point. If you can't get that initial one to work that you're working on, you might be okay with the next one. So it kind of uncomplicates it a little bit, but this is the example that the exam board has provided. And finally, the mark scheme. So you can see that it's split. We've got 2 different AOs, or assessment objectives here. So the first one is for kind of your programming skills. So if you use a range of programming techniques, which we've done in the answer, you're going to be in this top mark band. And then finally, look, things like if you haven't added comments, that's going to potentially take you down a band. Using suitable identifiers, so using the correct names, especially if the names that they've provided for you, and sensible names. Program in a logical order, so if you answer the steps, the bullet points in the order that we've done, it's going to be logical. The solution is accurate. So obviously that's going to come down to how you've answered the question, but you're going to do your best, and I'm pretty sure you're going to do a good job. And then finally, you've met all the requirements. So if you don't meet all the requirements, maybe you'll meet most of the requirements. So you're still going to be the top of this mark band or the bottom of this top mark band. So hopefully this video has been helpful. Very well done if you've managed to make it this far, and good luck for your exams. Thank you for watching.